This is Audiobook Caboodle YouTube channel. Click on the subscribe button and listen unlimited audiobooks anytime, anywhere.
Part 7 of Lives of Two Cats by Pierre Loti, translated by M.B. Richards. Part 7. Chapter 21. The life of a cat may extend over a period of 12 to 15 years if no accident occurs. Our two pets lived to enjoy together the light and warmth of another delicious summer. They found again their days of blissful idleness in company of the everlasting tortoise Zulema, whom the years forgot, between the blooming cacti on the sun-heated pavements, or stretched on the old wall amidst a profusion of jasmines and roses. They had many kittens, raised with tender care, and afterward advantageously domiciled in the neighbourhood. Those of the Chinese were in great demand, being of a peculiar colour and bearing distinctive race marks. They lived another winter, and recommenced their long naps in the chimney corner, their meditations before the changing aspect of the flame or embers of our wood fire. But this was their last season of health and joy, and soon after their decline began. In the succeeding spring some mysterious malady attacked their little bodies, which should have endured vigorous and sound for still some years. Pussy Chinese, first attacked, seemed stricken by some mental trouble, a sombre melancholy, regrets perhaps for her native Mongolia. Refusing both food and drink, she made long retreats to the wall-top, lying there motionless for entire days, replying only to our appeals by a sorrowful glance and plaintive meow. The Angora also, from the first warm days, began to languish, and by April both were really ill. Doctors, called in consultation, gravely prescribed absurd medicines and impossible treatments. For one, pills morning and evening, and poultices applied to the belly; for the other, a hydropathic course, close shaving of the body, and a cold plunge bath twice daily. Silvester himself, who adored the pussies, who obeyed him as they would no one else, declared all this impossible. We then tried the efficacy of domestic remedies. The mothers Michel were summoned, but their simple prescriptions were of no avail. They were going from us, our beloved and cherished pets, filling our hearts with great compassion, and neither the loveliness of spring nor its glory of returning sunshine could rouse them from the torpor of approaching death. One morning, as I arrived from a trip to Paris, Silvester, while receiving my valise, said to me sadly, "Sir, the Chinese is dead." She had disappeared for 3 days. She, so orderly, so domestic, who never left our premises. Doubtless, feeling her end near, she had fled, obedient to an impulse or sentiment of extreme modesty, which leads some animals to hide themselves to die. "She remained all the week," said Silvester, "up on the high wall, lying on the red jasmine vine, and would not come down to eat or drink; but she always answered when we spoke to her, in such a little feeble voice." Where then had she gone, poor Pussy Grey, to meet the terrible hour? Perhaps, in her ignorance of the world, to some strange house where she was not allowed to die in peace, but was tormented, driven out, and afterwards cast on the dunghill. Truly, I would have chosen that she might die at her home. My heart swelled a little at the remembrance of her strange human glances, so beseeching, so indicative of that need of affection which she could not otherwise express, seeking my own eyes with mute interrogation for ever unutterable. Who knows what mysterious agonies rend the little disturbed souls of the lower animals in their dying hours? Chapter 22. As if a fatal spell had been cast upon our cats, Pussy White also seemed near her end. By fantasy of the dying, she had selected her last lodging in my dressing room, upon a certain lounge, whose rose colour doubtless pleased her. There we carried to her a little food, a little milk, which were alike untasted. She looked at us whenever we entered with kind eyes, glad to see us, and still purred feebly when caressed. Then one pleasant morning she also disappeared, and we thought she would return no more. Chapter 23. She did return, however, and I recall nothing more sad than her reappearance. It was about 3 days after, in one of those delightful periods at the commencement of June, which shine and glow in the unclouded heavens, deceivers with promises of eternal duration, woeful to beings born to die. Our courtyard displayed all its leaves, all its flowers, all its roses upon its walls, as in so many past Junes. The martinets, the swallows, exhilarated with light and life, darted about with songs of joy in the blue above us. There was a universal festival of things without soul and gay animals unconscious of death. Aunt Clara, walking there, watching the opening blossoms, called to me suddenly, and her voice showed that something unusual had occurred. "Oh, come, look here! Our poor pussy has returned." She was there indeed, reappearing as a wretched little phantom, emaciated, weak, her fur already discoloured with earth. She was half dead. Who knows what emotion led her home? An afterthought, a lack of courage at the last hour, a longing to see us once more. With extreme exertion she had surmounted the lower wall, so familiar, which she was wont to cross in 2 bounds when she returned from her beat of police guard, to cuff some acquaintance, to correct some neighbour. Breathless from her supreme effort, she lay extended on the new grass at the margin of the mimic lake, bending her poor head to lap a mouthful of fresh water, and her imploring eyes called for aid. "Do you not see that I am dying? Can you do nothing to help me live a little longer?" Presages of death everywhere this fair June morning beneath its resplendent sky. Aunt Clara, leaning over her suffering favourite, seemed to me suddenly so old, feebler than ever before, ready also to go from us. We decided to carry Pussy White back to the dressing room, and place her on the rose-coloured lounge she herself had chosen the preceding week, and which had seemed to please her. I resolved to watch carefully that she should not depart again, that at least her bones might rest in the earth of our courtyard, that she should not be thrown on some dunghill, like that of my poor Chinese companion, whose anxious eyes still haunted me. I held her to my breast with careful tenderness, and, contrary to her habitude, she allowed herself to be carried this time in complete confidence, her drooping head leaning on my arm. Upon the rose-coloured lounge she struggled against death for 3 days, so great is a cat's vitality. The sun shone on the mansion and the gardens around us. We continued to visit her often, and she always endeavoured to rise to greet us, with a grateful and pathetic air, her eyes telling as plainly as those of a human being the presence and the distress of what we call the soul. One morning I found her dead, rigid, her open eyes glassy, expressionless, a corpse, a thing to be hidden from view. Then I bade Silvester make a grave in a terrace of the courtyard at the foot of a tree. Whither had fled that which I had seen shine forth from her dying eyes, the restless spark within? Whither had it gone? End of Part 7.
This was Audiobook Caboodle YouTube channel presentation. We hope you enjoyed listening. For full audiobook, check out our playlist section. Links in description below.